here, and I figure you'll be operating presentation stuff as well. For some reason, it's not doing us this, which it always does, but you could go like this if you wanted to, but the audio and everything is there. That is weird, I'm not sure. Once you get something up, you can share the screen for her.
Okay.
Maybe that will be less jarring.
Okay. Hello, Perla. I'm sorry you're gonna have to look at me for a minute.
No worries. Hello.
I have to do this so I can pull up a PowerPoint before we get started.
Okay.
And do I have to put my name too? Yes. This is Rebecca. It's 6:04, calling the meeting to order. Start with roll call.
Okay. Jessica Mahone. Present. Jose Gomez.
Present.
Perla Garcia.
Present.
Ann Corey.
Here.
Rebecca Paris.
Here.
Scott Benton.
So moving on to item 2, items for presentation, discussion, information, or action. Is there any public comments?
Oh, just go to 2.0.
2.0. Okay, approval of the minutes of September 18th, 2024 meeting on the Council on Family Resource Centers for possible action.
I'll move to approve those minutes. Jessica Mahon for the record.
This is Ann Corey, I'll second.
Is there any public comment?
Okay, sorry, technical difficulties, none. There is none.
So motion approved.
And then you just ask that you call it.
Oh, do I?
So you take the vote. All in
Oh, yeah,
favor?
that's, I'm
Yes.
sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Passes unanimously.
Okay, passes unanimously. Okay, so moving on to 2.02, presentation and discussion of open meeting law requirements for members serving on the Council on Family Resource Center. Should probably move my.
Hi, everybody. This is Sarah Montalvo. I'm Deputy Chief General Counsel for the Washoe County School District. And I'm just going to give a brief presentation on open meeting law, as you are a public body of the Board of Trustees. So you're subject to the open meeting law requirements. I'm not going to go into great detail about all of the very rigid requirements of the open meeting law, but just I've tailored this presentation for committees, kind of the information that you guys will need to know and what's kind of relevant to you. So if we go to the next slide. I just wanted to point out the spirit of the open meeting law. Why do we do this? What is the whole purpose of making sure we follow all of the rules for the open meeting law? It's essentially so the public can see what you're doing in open and be able to provide comments to it. So it does serve a good purpose because when we do functions for public bodies, we also always want to hear what the public has to say, and we want to invite them to engage with the process and be able to provide public comment if they want to, and they need to be obviously noticed what your actions are and what you're doing in order to be informed of whether or not it's something that they wanted to attend and make public and provide you some feedback. And then obviously the public bodies could be persuaded based on what the public comment is, and therefore, and then all your actions are basically, you know, open, and so there's no secrecy, obviously, in the actions of the government. So that's the overriding purpose, and why, and I like kind of why we harken back, even though it does seem very rigorous, it serves a positive purpose. So next slide. So what is a meeting? And this is why this is important. A meeting is defined as a quorum of members, and a quorum is a majority for you guys. What is your quorum number? 4. So anytime you have 4 or more people on your committee, then you have a quorum of your committee. Anything less than 4, there is no quorum. So therefore, you're not technically acting as a meeting if there's not a quorum of you. But not only do you have to have quorum, there has to be quorum plus deliberation, and we'll go into what deliberation means, or quorum plus action. So that is what constitutes a meeting. So if we go to the next slide, what is not a meeting, because you don't have a quorum plus deliberation or a quorum plus an action item, is social functions. So that's actually really relevant to you guys, especially if, for example, you're going to some fundraiser events or things like that for the community resource centers. And oftentimes there's this thought that you guys can't ever be in the same room together, right? Because if all 4 or more of you are in the same room, then that automatically is an open meeting law violation. Well, that's not true. If you're just doing a social function that has really, you're not deliberating, which means discussing an item or a decision on a matter of which you have control or authority over within this group, right? So for example, if you guys all started, you have a quorum, and you start talking about the LA fires, right? That is not, although there's all 4 of you, that is not an item or a deliberation discussion that you guys have jurisdiction over as the Council on Family Resource Center, because it's not relevant to what you guys do as a public body. So you can talk about anything and discuss things or even debate things that have no relevancy to what you guys are doing here. you can add a social function, engage in lots of discussions on anything but fundraising for Council on Family Resource Centers and the makeup of Council of Family Resources and ideas for them. That would be obviously something within your control and jurisdiction as a public body, but anything else, you can talk away, even if you have a quorum of members, and you're fine. And that's not an open meeting law issue. So next slide. Obviously, I said it's a simple majority of the total body. Where a lot of people get in trouble are these kind of walking quorums and constructive quorums or serial communications. These are either you're having conversations either in person or through emails where there's only, say, 2 of you, right? And you guys are engaging in a conversation. But then you are forwarding that conversation to 2 other members and you start, for example, polling, right? Of, hey, you know, I have some great fundraising ideas for this. Like, what do you guys think about XYZ? And you're just doing that with just less than a quorum, but then you start sharing it, or you start going, or one person in that conversation then goes to others and you start kind of engaging and polling each other. That's called a walking quorum or constructive quorum, and it's where people were trying to get around and skirt around, oh, we're not a quorum, and you know, because there weren't 4 of us together. Well, that's kind of violating the spirit of the law, because you're kind of secretly trying to deliberate and discuss things outside of an open meeting. And so that's what you can't do, and that's what you have to be cognizant of. And that's why I'm not sure if you guys have ever seen this, but oftentimes for other committees or for our Board of Trustees, when we send out emails, we always blind copy our trustees on an email so they can't then reply all and start engaging in conversations with other members of the trustees, because we don't want to potentially violate the open meeting law and have them start engaging in discourse with all of their fellow trustees on an email. So I think I gave all of those, yes. And so next slide. Obviously, deliberate means collectively to examine, weigh, and reflect on the reasons over which you have control. This also includes the collective discussion or exchange of facts preliminary to the ultimate decision. So even if you're saying, hey, you know, you're not going and kind of deliberating and saying, this is the kind of action I want to go, even if you're collecting facts like, hey, there's this great organization that does X, Y, Z, you know, even if you don't say they might be a good person to do this, if you are starting to set up facts that are relevant to what your jurisdiction is for this committee, that counts as a deliberation, even if you're not exchanging ideas. Preliminary facts are also considered deliberation. So even like throwing out ideas right there and saying, oh, there's this organization and it raises money, you know, like that would still be a deliberation. So just be aware that you probably shouldn't email each other and just, you know, throw out names of organizations that might be helpful. And then next slide. So what to avoid? Obviously, walking, quorum, serial communications, polling, which is very similar to those, sharing thoughts and opinions on matters, and reply all on emails with committee members can constitute a meeting. So just obviously be very aware of that. That's where we tend to see people kind of get in trouble, and these walking quorums. Obviously, if you're going to a fundraising event, you don't have to like say, oh, 2 of us go over here and 2 of us go over there. That is oftentimes what people like think is that we can't have all 4 of us together at once. You guys can hang out together at, even if it's event related to Council on Family Resource Centers, if you're going to an opening of a resource center or you're celebrating achievements, right? That's fine, and you guys can all stand together. Just don't discuss issues that are relevant to what are agendized topics that you guys have. Feel free to do that. I know, especially on this one, there's been some concerns that you couldn't ever go to something together and kind of celebrate the successes. That's not true. Just be very cognizant to refrain from discussing things related to it, or, hey, there's a good idea about this with 4 of you or more together, and then you'll be fine. And then is this the last slide? I did for another committee that I was on. It's kind of relevant. Whenever there are like public records requests, I'm not sure, have you guys created your own email addresses to be able to receive information related to this?
No, I don't know that they have their own, like, beyond, like, your work or an email just
Like
for this council.
if you guys get information related to this from like your personal email address, generally it's fine. But what we recommend is to create a Gmail or a Yahoo or whatever it is, and it could be Council of Family Resource Centers Jessica, right, at gmail.com. Whatever you want to call your username at gmail.com, and that will be your only email that can receive information. You give that to Rochelle and say, all of the information related to Council of Family Resource Committee, please send to this email address. That way, if we get a public records request about, I want all communications between members of the Council of Family Resource Center and anything you guys got as members of the Council of Family Resource Center, you can just go to your, you can just say, yep, I'll just go open up my email address for that, and here, this is everything I have related to the Council of Family Resource Center. That way you don't have to search through your personal email account and potentially have us search through your personal email account to see if everything is responsive. I don't think you guys have too much to worry about. This is generally not a controversial committee. It's a very positive committee that most of the public is on board for, but you never know, and so it's a good idea in case we get public records requests related to this committee. We don't want to be going through your emails. I don't think you guys want us to be searching through your emails to make sure we got everything related to this. So it's just generally a good idea to set up an email if that is helpful to you guys. We haven't gotten any public records requests for you guys since I've been at the district, and that's been, this will be my 13th year or 12th year here. So I doubt it's going to happen. We just like to offer that just so on the safe side, and so you guys don't feel inconvenienced if we get something like that. Just a little tidbit if you want to do that. If not, that's totally fine, because I don't really foresee this being too much of an issue, but just an idea. And with that, that's my little quick refresher on open meeting law issues that you guys might face.
Thank you so much. For the record, Scott Benton has joined us. Are there any questions?
Jose, for the record, for those emails that we create for the Gmail, other public, would that be for the public? Like, would it be like on the school district website or something like that?
So what it would just be is you would get to, just like your personal email address, this would just be the email address that you receive information from. And so that way, if we get a public records request and you produce those, all they would see is your Council of Family Resource Center's email address. That way you're not also giving up your public, or your private, email address in a response to a public record. And it would just be things that are in there. And so it would mostly be for Rochelle to send you things like the agenda, like any supporting documents.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, Chair Benton, are you prepared to take over the meeting?
I can if you need me to.
I think your
Will you
vice
put the
chair would
agenda up because I
appreciate it.
can't see both. I'm on my phone.
Oh. Are you okay to continue it since he's on his phone? I'm not sure if he can see the agenda. Okay.
Okay, so nobody has anything further? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So moving on to 2.03, presentation and discussion of the Washoe County School District Family Resource Center's funding status, including status of grant applications and possible action to provide recommendations to staff on scheduling future fundraising and publicity events. Is there any public comment?
There is no public comment at this time.
Okay.
Okay, this is me, Rochelle Muriel, for the record. This is a standing agenda, if you may recall, where we discuss our current funding status and if the committee is interested in any sort of action item around this agenda item. To give you a couple of updates, we currently have 5 family resource centers open, as you all know. 2 of our grants, the Human Services Agency grant will complete on June 30th of this year, and a larger federal grant that we utilize for some of our staff will be sunsetting as well. The congressionally funded federal grant that we have will be coming to a completion on June 30th as well. So we're currently looking for grants to sustain the salaries of some of the staff that were in those grants. We did apply for a fairly large amount, $600,000 through Wave Dance. And Wave Dance, as I understand it, is a local grant. And we did not get that grant. There may be another opportunity coming up in the future, as I understand it, but to date, we did not get that grant. We have also been working with a local community group called Strengthening Our Communities, which is a fairly new community-based group. Just to give you some background, this group is interested in primarily working on reducing chronic absenteeism in Washoe County, and they are doing some work around that regarding chronic absenteeism across Nevada. But as they are doing that, we identified that families who don't have access to consistent housing or power or food, that does impact a child's ability to perform well in school. And it does impact attendance, of course, right? So they did prioritize trying to find funding for family resource centers within the scope of what they're doing, amongst other things. And I think I may have talked about this in the past. So they are looking at funding a program that we have called the Middle School Engagement Program. That's funding and expanding some communities and schools at middle school level. It's also funding a few positions called re-engagement specialists. So all of these positions might have a little bit of a focus, these 2 positions, communities and schools, which are not district folks, but it is communities and schools individuals, and re-engagement specialists who are school district employees would be primarily focused on reducing chronic absenteeism at the middle school that they're at. So they're looking at sustaining those positions and expanding communities in schools for the next 3 years. Their second priority is family resource centers. So they're looking at sustaining our current staff, and then they'd like to expand to 2 other areas. They've asked us to identify areas that we are interested in expanding to. The consensus is that we're kind of focused up in the North Valleys already. We'd like to expand farther south, maybe in the Neal Road, closer to Pine, Smith Ridge area. We've talked about maybe the Trainer area, which might mean that we move a center. It just kind of depends on space and the funding and the amount of staff that we can fund at those sites. So they're working on that. They have partnered with an agency called Blueprint, who is working on pulling together a fundraising event that would potentially bring in funds for both the positions for communities and schools and re-engagement specialists, and their goal is to sustain family resource centers as we are currently funded and potentially expand us to an additional 2 other centers. So that is coming up. We don't have dates yet. There's a lot of work still to be done around this, but that's some of the work that we're doing around trying to sustain funding. We will potentially have to be applying for a few of our grants that we typically apply for. A few of them have been extended to 2-year grant cycles, which is really nice. I don't know if all of them have. I don't think all of them have. I don't think Children's Trust Fund. I think that one is still an annual application. I think Title 4B is every 2 years now, which is really nice. So we'll have that one for an additional year after this fiscal year. Our fiscal year is July 1 to June 30th for most of our grants. Some of our federal grants are the federal fiscal year starting October 1st. But the vast majority are July 1 to June 30th. So that's sort of our update on this. You all may remember that the mayor, I think it was the mayor, declared May 15th, I believe, as Family Resource Center Day. So I just wanted to keep that sort of in your mind as you are thinking if there's anything this committee wants to move forward with in terms of events or fundraising activities. Those are things that in the past this committee has been interested in doing and has been interested in doing it around that day. Since we're in January 15th, today's my daughter's birthday, and I think it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Anne. And so thinking about that, so I'm going to put it out to the committee if there's any discussion around this topic.
Rebecca, for the record, I'm sure we've talked about this before, but in the past, what kind of fundraising has been done, like with the help of the committee?
There has
been
been
anything?
none so far.
Okay. So everything basically is grants,
Correct.
mostly, yes.
Mhm.
And then the strengthening our communities, that's a newer?
That is new. Yeah, we have just started working with them this past summer. Actually, maybe it was the spring when we started meeting initially.
But are they a newer, like, organization, or have they been around for a while?
No, they're newer, yeah.
Okay. So we're
Yes.
hoping that it'll be sustainable moving forward?
That is the hope. That
Okay.
is the hope. And they
Yeah.
are looking at other areas too, because we know, attendance impacts many areas. And so building capacity around expanding before and after school programs for students. If you're familiar with full service community schools, it's very similar to that model around co-locating services and building capacity around families being able to access resources within their school community. Hoping to help childcare become affordable because it's incredibly expensive for working families. Those kinds of things.
Jose, for the record, for the May 15th for Family Resource Day, is there possibly a conversation to have like a subcommittee on the conversation if we want to do a fundraising or an event regarding that specific day?
I do believe you can do a subcommittee. I don't know how that impacts open meeting law. You're probably subject to the same thing that Sarah is talking about with quorum.
Yeah, so subcommittees are still then committees, and then you would have to follow all of the open meeting law requirements, which means noticing, setting up all of the viewing and everything. So we've been asked this before about setting up subcommittees, and we generally discourage that because it's very difficult pull on our staff resources to try to then also then follow the open meeting law for the subcommittees.
So how do we go around to have a conversation if we want to do like a fundraising?
So today you all can talk about this. If you have an idea, you can bring it forward to the committee. If you'd like it to move forward, you would make a motion on that. The committee would need to vote on it. If you voted for some sort of action around fundraising, for example, then that is something that we would move forward with, and then we'd put it on a future agenda item to revisit the progress of that action item.
Yeah, I'm just being transparent because right now we're in January and our next meeting is until March, and then after that,
Right.
we don't have enough time.
Yeah, we have
to, if we want to make something today, we have to make the action today, or we have to wait until next year. So just throwing it out there.
Rochelle, can I chime in?
Yes, please, Chair Benton.
Sorry I couldn't be there in person. This conversation is something that is so passionate to me about fundraising and how we as a committee can help. And that's why it's on the agenda, because we all have the desire to help and we just don't have the time to plan it. We run into this boat, I feel like every year now. It's been 5 years that we've offered ideas and things, and the district is really good about wanting us to do those things, but we also run into the point where we're asking staff to do more for us to have a fundraiser. Like, we physically can't organize the fundraiser as individuals. It has to be done by the district staff. So if we take action tonight to plan a fundraiser, we need to keep the conversation going at every agenda or every meeting. It's on the agenda. We need to keep revisiting that and planning as we go. I don't think it's fair, like me as one person, I'm not going to ask for a fundraiser this year because we are in that crunch time. We have from now until March, and then we have to decide on March what's going to happen if we kick it to March, if we don't make decisions today.
And it doesn't
But I
have
like the
to be
spirit of
yeah.
everybody wanting
Yeah.
to do fundraisers, and I think we've all thrown out different ideas, but it just puts more stress on the Family Resource Center staff when we really want the staff to network and resource to the families that are coming in that need it.
And it doesn't have to be a fundraising activity. It's also publicity events on the agenda item. So in the past, this committee has been interested in just getting more information out about family resource centers. If you ask the average person, they frequently don't know about family resource centers unless they've utilized it, they've worked with us. Even though we've been around for 30 years, many folks don't know about the family resource centers.
I do, and this is Jose for the record, I do like maybe do some social media exposure for you guys. I also do recognize I do work with you guys individually, and I know you do such great work. I think maybe doing like an appreciation lunch or something to celebrate you guys. I think that'd be a great start for us, just celebrating for all the work you've accomplished. Just even hearing your guys' conversation, I have those in my work setting and having those conversations. I think it would be pretty good just to celebrate you guys.
I'm sure I love that idea. I was definitely thinking, this is Jessica Mahon for the record, thinking around publicity as probably the lowest hanging fruit in terms of timeline as well. I almost wonder about some of those they're typically a little more hands-off. They're not extremely financially fruitful typically, but it's good for exposure around like partnering with a local business to say, okay, on Family Resource Center Day, 10% of our proceeds on this day will go towards the FRC. It's typically tend to be better for just community engagement, publicity versus they don't bring in a ton of cash historically, I think, for a lot of agencies, but it could be an easy opportunity to set something up. I was thinking kind of along the same lines of just getting the word out there. But I love the appreciation event idea.
I think that'd be, Jose, for the record, I think that'd be something simple. Like I know that at my other committee, at my other position I'm in, we asked Panda Express. We had a QR code. If you scan it, any proceeds that you guys make will go to you guys, kind of thing. Local gyms, I know, like I work out at Orange Theory, and we have a day that we can just say, hey, May 15th, if you come and work out, whatever, we call it squat points, any points that you get through your workout, is, if you get, for example, 20 of those, you donate $20. I know it's not a lot, but it's at least as a start that we can start with and then reassess it after we see what we can do with those.
I'm sorry, Anne. I was just gonna say really quick, the director over strengthening our communities, Mike Kazmierski, wrote an op-ed about family resource centers that will be published in the Reno Gazette Journal in the next week. And it's essentially talking about family resource centers and also asking if anyone is inclined to donate to family resource centers. Sorry.
I was just going to suggest that this is Ann Corey. The Human Being, the coffee place, they're very generous. They've, for the last number of years, taken a day and part of the proceeds from one day towards CHA and their breast cancer screening program. And it's really kept that program going. So that is a local organization that is very generous. I have one other issue that I'm just wondering what's really realistic for us to do without burdening staff. And I think the idea of finding a couple of businesses to do sponsorships and maybe putting together a luncheon sound feasible, where a lot of other things would probably be beyond our scope.
Rebecca, for the record, going back to like social media, is it something we could do where we could create like some kind of QR code where they can donate through like social media stuff? I know it's not going to like fund a position, but that could help with, like bus passes or, like little things, hygiene, just to kind of
Yeah.
start and maybe get the word out type of thing.
Yeah, so those are a little bit difficult. So all of our funds are managed by our grants department, and something like a QR code is very hard for them to track and manage. So the easiest thing to do is for people to, this sounds very cold, but just to write a check so that they can track those funds, and so it's deposited directly into the grant. They make note of the purpose of that. So if it's gifts and donations, there's some leeway in the way that's spent, but they also monitor what we're spending it on. Are we spending it on, gas cards for individuals? Are we tracking that? Are we doing inventory on that? Those kinds of things. So that's really the only way that they can truly track. And it gives us some accountability too, in terms of documenting exactly where all the funds are going. So that's the QR code. I think we've tried to talk to them about that, and it's just too difficult for them to be able to monitor those kinds of things. Sorry, I don't mean to put up barriers.
Anybody else?
I think I'm ready to make a motion. I move that the council approve the approaching businesses to designate some of their profits from certain activities to FRCs. Is that too vague? It's pretty vague.
If you could just clarify that it would be a recommendation that district staff seek out business partners to help with fundraising.
Yes. I would.
If you approve that clarification. Yes.
I approve that clarification. Thank you.
Does anybody second?
I second that.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Actually, I have a question
Aye.
first.
Oh, hang on.
Jessica, for the record, would it be within the scope of the council members to provide recommendations or assistance after, on an individual level, not as a team, to support those activities?
Yes, so individually, you guys can speak with Rochelle. You can say, hey, this might be a good partner, like you suggested, a human being.
Or I'm willing to reach out to
Yes,
this
yeah,
business,
just don't
or-
talk
okay.
to each other about it.
Great.
Yes, or copy each other. all
Thank you
on
for
it.
that clarification. Yeah.
So, council members, maybe we should have at least one from each of us to find a a organization that we can partner, and then we can let Rochelle know that those, because the more the merrier. Like, if we have one from a restaurant, one from a gym, one from a coffee shop, I think, and then find something else, that's 4 we can figure out. And whatever they say yes or no, we can move it from there. So the board there's 6 of us. So if at least we can come up with 6.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passed.
The rubber hits the road.
Calling dibs on human being.
I got the gyms.
Okay, so moving on to 2.04, presentation and discussion of data and outreach events, including future community events and volunteer opportunities. This is for presentation and discussion only.
I would suggest, this is Ann Corey, I would suggest that since we have the printed version of all of this information, perhaps we could forego the reading of it to us, and
Yeah.
if you're comfortable doing that.
That's fine. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to what was in the presentation? Okay, are there any questions based on, and I'll try to pull those, I'm so sorry that I'm so in front here, so. I will do my best to pull this up so you can see Perla, but I think Perla and Scott, you also have a copy of the attachments if you want to check in on those more quickly than one I can pull up.
No, I'm good with it. I'm just going to ask my standard question.
Yeah.
Is it Lisa presenting?
Lisa can come up and present.
I just want to know what the favored event was for the quarter.
Here she comes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Lisa Guzman for the record, and yes, I am well prepared to answer that question. I would have to say that for this past quarter, it was our Thanksgiving distribution. So Sparks partnered with North Valley's Family Resource Center, which for years the Sparks FRC has worked with the Reno North Stake of the LDS Church and Catholic Charities to work with the schools in Sparks, Northeast, and Northwest Reno to provide Thanksgiving boxes to families in need. And a couple of years ago, Jesse joined me in that, and it's really blossomed to quite the event. So between the three areas that I just mentioned, as well as the North Valley schools, we served 400 families. And just to kind of give you an idea, so we reach out to the schools identify families, usually it's around 10. Catholic Charities provides food bags and either frozen hams or frozen turkeys. And then the event is held at the LDS Church on Kings Row. And they have many volunteers that are invaluable to the event. The school staff shows up, they form a line, they don't have to get out of their car. The volunteers from the church load their car. Since Jesse has joined the effort, we've expanded to include various organizations like the Medicaid MCOs, Project 150, Asian Community Development Council, Katie Grace Foundation, they're a huge supporter. So we have these other various agencies on hand that the school personnel, if they choose, after they get their car loaded, can pull over and park and come visit with the agencies to learn more about them and gather any information to take back to their families. So a lot of work, but always very nice, very fun, a great way to connect with all of our schools and the different agencies. So that was it for me, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And while I have the microphone, I just must say how much I appreciate all of your support in even thinking about us for Family Resource Center Day. So we really appreciate you. Thank you.
Jessica Mahon for the record. I was looking at the number of households served and the monetary cost to date. I was just kind of curious about a little bit more information around there. I was looking at 98 households receiving rental assistance this fiscal year so far at a monetary cost of about $42,000. I was really surprised how low that was for 98 households. It's about $400 per. Is that about what you guys are seeing on an average assistance level, or are there non-funded services being provided to those 98 families?
So I think if it's saying rental assistance, we are providing that assistance. Would teammates agree that that is an actual service that we're providing? And I think the reason it's not higher is because a lot of that is motel assistance, which could be a few days or a week, which would be maybe around $400 or $500. You know, we do have some when they're renting a house, it's $2,000. So I think it really does vary a lot, just depending on the situation.
Gotcha. Thank you. I was just curious about that.
Any other questions? I do want to let you guys know too, one quick update. We have a partnership with Big Reno Coat Drive every year. We've had that partnership for at least the past 4 years. This year, they increased the number of coats that they donated to us by 1,000. So we received 3,000 coats, and we distributed almost every single one of them through family resource centers, through attendance officers, re-engagement specialists, and other staff. We had counselors come in, pick them up. So we have a lot of kiddos that got coats, which is great. And then also they donated hats and gloves. The local Elks Club donated a bunch of them. We got socks from a couple of community groups. So just trying to keep kids warm out there. It's frigid. It's frigid cold out there. So it's nice to see so many coats go out, and they went out fast, which is good, but then not good because we had a lot of kids in need. So.
Any more questions? Are we ready to move on to the next? Okay, so our next two meetings are going to be March 12th and June 18th. Just a reminder, it is important to come to each meeting so we can discuss and collaborate and all that fun stuff. Any questions? Comments? No? Okay. Is there any public comment?
Geez. I guess it's user error. Not on this agenda topic, no. Oh, in general, 3.01, no, there's no public comment.
Then the next meeting will be March 12th at 6 o'clock here. Meeting adjourned at 6:47.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, guys.
Okay, have a
Thank
good
you.
night.